by now, we're all pretty familiar with dopamine, the neurotransmitter, and its related structures in the brain and its relationship to reward. Like so many things, the modern world has compartmentalized what it is to be human and hyperfixated on this one little thing and really worked out how the algorithm that our brain runs on works in order to be able to manipulate it, in order to be able to manipulate us. In the same way that we've processed our food to the point that we've created refined sugar to the point that we created sweet things that are sweeter than have ever existed in all of natural history. I think we've done the same sort of thing with our mechanisms for achievement and that feeling of making progress. At some point, we worked out that we could give people the simulation of having achieved something. Even though the achievement was a farce, the dopamine was real. And thanks to our ever reliable imagination, we can feel almost as much reward from being given the picture of a cookie as being rewarded with a real one. And more than that, we can simulate achievements that we could probably not achieve in real life. I suppose playing Guitar Hero is, you can achieve something at that, but it's simulating being good at guitar. Which you may not be. And I suppose we can also simulate, achieving things that no human could ever achieve. In tabletop role-playing games, there is a sentiment of game design that a good game incentivizes or rewards role-play, but I think problems can arise depending on how you implement this. Hi, my name's Matt. Welcome to the Tomb of Lime. What we choose to abstract and what we choose to leave granular in our RPGs can tell us a lot about what our game is about. There's an idea floating around that the stuff that the mechanics and rules are concerned with is just the thing that your game is not about because, well, you don't have to role play that stuff. You have to worry about, on a granular level, what the mechanics don't cover. And if that's your concern, then that is what your game is about. I think there's merit to this idea, but I think it has its limits, because you might arrive at the conclusion that the one thing that the game MechWarrior is most not about is mech combat. And if your game has an abstracted reward for good role-playing, like a meta currency, what does that say about what your game is about? And what does that say about why your players are there? So I'm in a band, and I think musicians deserve to get paid, right? But that is not why I am there at practice. I am there, along with my bandmates, to make good music. Now, I would not invite someone to be a part of that band if they were not there to make music as well. And especially if I had to incentivize them to, play the right notes with some kind of token.
It's a banana sticker. Don't I get one? No, Murderface, you do not get a banana sticker.
Gold stars are how you motivate young children to eat their vegetables and make their bed, or, giving a piece of kibble is how you train a dog. If I gave my all to role-playing a character, and then the GM pat me on the head and say, "Good boy, here's a story point," I would be insulted. And I suppose if you have the maximum of 3 story points and you can't earn any more, does that mean you don't have to do any good role play until you spend one? Come on. In the same way that I don't think you can add so many rules to a game that you turn a bad GM into a good GM, I don't think you can turn a reluctant or bad role player into a good role player by hijacking their dopamine reward pathways. This is not about gatekeeping bad players out of the hobby or away from your table. Who you have at your table is up to you, but this is about not forcing people who do not have a desire to roleplay to sit through your session. Role-playing games are social, and role-playing games are games, right? But if socializing or gaming is a higher priority for your player than role-playing, then not only would they probably be served by a different kind of game, but there's a very good chance that the GM is over-investing and they're going to burn themselves out trying every trick in the book to get their players to roleplay, to coax them to roleplay, and then it won't even work. If socializing with your friends is more important than the game, then play a party game. And if gaming is more important to you, if gaming with your friends is more important to you than the game, then play Hero Quest or something. I think it'll end up being more rewarding, less frustrating. If you want someone to be a good role player, don't trick them. Teach them. And likewise, if you want someone to be a good GM, don't rules lawyer their fiat into oblivion. Teach them what RPGs are. Teach them what RPGs can be. Or maybe send them a link to your favorite TTRPG YouTubers. But if everyone is on board, and role-playing is their highest priority, not only, that's fine, but their highest priority, then the rewards will be much more, well, they'll be focused around the role-play. They'll be much more organic to the game. Well, I'll start this section off by saying, I don't like meta currencies for role-playing games. Currencies are fine, health and willpower and whatever, because these are abstractions of something that the character would have, would be their concern, their in-world. I mean, even experience points represent something that the character has, but meta currencies are something that the player has, not the character. I mean, if your character can manipulate reality, right? That's not a meta currency, that's a magic system. But if it's you manipulating reality, well, I think the simplest question to ask here is this. When you're spending a meta currency, who are you role-playing? No one. Or maybe an author exercising authorial control, or maybe a demigod interfering in the lives of mere mortals, but you're certainly not role-playing your character. That might be fine for a storytelling game, but one of the hallmarks of role-playing is agency. And for you to have agency in your game, your actions have to have consequences. Metacurrencies seem to be there to help you negate the consequences of your action. That even though you took a risk that led to death, that you just don't have to deal with it. When the player's concerns trump the character's concerns, you've stopped playing a role and you've started just being a puppet master. So let me put this in no uncertain terms. The best reward for role-playing is the consequences of actions, the consequences of the decisions that you make. That's a reward of agency. That's a reward of world verisimilitude. It's the reward of a world that facilitates further roleplay. The dopamine you get that bestowed on you by the GM so that you can choose failure but suffer only success it's shallow. It's cheap. Just winning might seem superficially more fun, but I remember there was an interview I saw of Michael Ironside. He's an actor. He did the voice of Sam Fisher in the Splinter Cell games, and Fisher's character is one that is a life of tragedy and hardship. And at some point he says, it's fun to return to this character, and then he stops himself and he says, well, it's not fun, it's more rewarding. Watching behind the scenes stuff on Aliens, James Cameron's film, it was not fun to make that movie. And I suppose the characters aren't having fun either, right? But it made a good movie. Suffering the consequences of your actions isn't always fun, but in an RPG, it can be very rewarding. Rewarding in a deeper way, if you allow it to be. In a way that the reward for good roleplay should be a good role-playing session. So help me out. I want to hear if you've got a story about how a character suffered the consequences of their actions when they could have done something more poetically satisfying in a typical storytelling sense, but you had a more rewarding experience by facing up to the consequences of your actions. And I think it's Protagoras, Plato's dialogue, where they sort of talk about whether you can teach someone to be good, right? I think you can obviously teach someone techniques on how to be a better role player, but do you think that you can teach someone to want to be a better role player? Can you teach them to want that? What do you think? Anyway, my name's Matt. This was The Tomb of Lime. Thank you very much for listening.